All right, it is good to be back live, not on a Mike Giardi Monday. We could call it TO Tuesday. We could call it Tipsy Tuesday, depending on what's in your hand, as was often on Monday. Do we have a beer? Yeah. All right. That is in a hard liquor glass, however. What is going on?
I just grabbed a glass. That's all.
And then poured an amount of liquor, not a beer. Okay. I'm going to be nice at the start here in another episode of the Pat's Interference Podcast, part of the jaunty, jesting, juicy CLNS Media Network. You've seen me in sweatpants. Don't give me the eyebrow. It's just past 6 p.m. It's day 2 of free agency. So the first rule of this episode is there are no hoots or hollers or whatever about moves made after this. The bonus is that we're live. If the Patriots do sign, trade, cut anybody, we get to react in the moment, which I've never done before. So right off the top, we have a trade with a punter, not involving them. Will there be a signing in the next hour or so?
Negative.
Okay. Can't wait to play that back if you're wrong. I hope that there isn't, because we have a lot to get to. And even though the Patriots have signed 4 outside players, all of who addressed specific needs, I want to start here in the obvious place, and that is Cole Strange. Strange signed with the Chargers yesterday. That's not news, but when I saw that come across my feed, it reminded me of my favorite Cole Strange moment, and that was the day after he was drafted, April 28th, 2022. If you picked up a Boston Herald that Friday morning, you would have read a piece naturally about Patriots drafted Cole Strange. This is who he is, how much he played, yada, yada. Right next to it was a notebook, also with my byline, that said top targets on day 2 for the Patriots in the draft. And on this list of targets was a guard from Chattanooga named Cole Strange. And that was because I had to file for stupid newspaper reasons before the draft even started. And didn't expect, of course, that Cole Strange would get drafted. Now, fast forward. Last night, I have to file again a little early. And like, what the hell happened here? What to make of day 1? And I say, look, if they're going to extend themselves for a guard, it should be Alijah Vera-Tucker. And I don't bring this up to pat myself on the back. It is to say that, unlike the Strange move, this Vera-Tucker move and the Romeo Doubs signing that we've seen today, we all look at, and you can still be pissed in the big picture about Alec Pierce, but that's fine, and go, this makes sense. This is exactly what they should be doing. This is not reaching for a guard in the draft. This is finding a need, finding the best players available, certainly in Vera-Tucker's situation. Now that Alec Pierce is gone, it is Romeo Doubs. And that sensibility, to me, Mike, defines their approach so far. They're slow playing it, but it's not in a we're only hunting for bargain sense. It's we're going to let everyone lose their minds for 8 hours as they used to do, and then we're still going to go after the top guys if we can get them at our number. And so far, for the most part, but not everyone, so good.
This is what we talked about on my podcast when you made your first ever appearance on the All 32 last week, is just they're not in a position where they had to be desperate. Last year was your roster's terrible. You've got to flush a bunch of guys out. You've got to get better players in here. You have all this money, new regime. You got to go spend like crazy to try to raise the floor, which was in the basement of that football team. And obviously they did that and then some with the way the season went. This is more of, they have needs. There's no question. This is not a complete roster by any stretch of the imagination, and they'd be the first ones to tell you that, and they kind of did at the Combine, right? Or even after the season ended when Vrabel had his press conference on that Tuesday. But this is just sort of, okay, now let's pick and choose the guys that we feel like are good fits for us. We're not going to extend ourselves to the nth level like they did with Milton Williams last year and just say, what's the number? And we'll beat it. This is more of a measured approach, but has effectively filled some needs to this point, and there's still several holes that still need to be filled. But again, it's Tuesday at 6:09. Free agency just started, 36 hours ago. So there's plenty of time to get that done. They don't have to play a football game tonight or tomorrow or anytime soon. So there is time to fix all that.
So I left out the best part of my story about the Vera-Tucker signing, which happened at 11:40, whatever, last night, well after I'd filed and right after I'd gone to bed. I woke up an hour later to a "you up" text, and it wasn't from an ex-girlfriend, which I promise you exist. It was from Doug Kyde. And so I just feel honored to get a "you up" text from the handsome Doug Kyde, our friend and my work partner. But that is to also say, like, look, that changed my whole feeling about their free agency, which hasn't, shifted in a big way. But the Romeo Doubs signing, I gave a B. And right now, the grade is incomplete, right? They have more work to do. They need to keep this momentum with a tight end, with another edge, and a safety at the very minimum in order to keep the grade that we kind of give them here. And I would give, frankly, most of their moves individually. but I like the momentum they built. They just need to continue it now. And there's still good players available, even though apparently Trey Hendrickson's agent is a crazy person. And K'Lavon Chaisson has been caught in the blowing winds of the Jalen Phillips, Odafe Boye Mafe deals that are just sending the edges going crazy.
Yeah.
Arnold Ebiketie, like Jalen Hawkins is still out there, but just I like the sensibility of it. Do you have any other reasons besides, hey, we're not desperate and we know what we want, we know what we need, that they approached free agency this way? Because that's all I heard at the combine was like, hey, we're not going to spend a ton. But so far, it's been an appropriate amount once you step back.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thought that kind of comes to mind is in talking to people around the league who've scouted these players and in some cases have coached these players at different spots is that they're clearly looking for a certain kind of person that helps to fit in the culture that they had to build from the ground floor as well last year. And so I'm not saying, like, I don't know these guys personally. I can't tell you they're awesome dudes, but it feels like, again, just sort of leaning in the direction of like guys that are trustworthy on and off the field. And, again, you could clip this and throw it back in my face if something were to happen. But I'm just telling you what I know at this point is that good players, as Mike Vrabel said, you need good players. They aren't all going to be good guys. That's just the nature of the beast. But it feels like they've managed to check those boxes off thus far with what they've done. And I appreciate that. Like, you have guys on your team that are already, quote unquote, dice rolls that are already here. It's like you don't need to add a ton of those guys already. So to me, that's just another thing that kind of stood out about the approach that they've taken.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, because they brought up spending, and I know that's everyone's favorite hot topic. And look, they set the record for guaranteed money last year. So like we can't be selective with our memories. And they have been certainly cheap in years, and you could pull the numbers and find them. And I think the cheapness is frankly a bigger issue outside of the spending now that Belichick is gone, like you see with the plane and the weight room, et cetera, et cetera. But my point about it is last year they were more willing to overspend because they loved a lot of players in that class, in addition to the desperation. This is not like we're too cool for school here in 2026 coming off a Super Bowl. It's just like, okay, so who's at the top of the market? Jalen Phillips, who played one full season at 7 sacks, and then he might have even had 5 last year, and then gets $30 million. Not really for us. You overpay for guys that you love, not like in the case of maybe Alijah Vera-Tucker. I
was just going to say quickly, the Boye Mafe thing where you're saying where K'Lavon Chaisson is sort of caught up in this wash and some other guys as well that they might be interested in. It's no one saw 20 million coming. Like, just you didn't see that sort of number for Mafe, right? No, Mafe.
Oh. I mean,
Owe definitely. I mean, I thought Owe was going to be north of 20 million, and he got what, 25?
25, yeah, 100 over 4.
But again, some of the projections were low on some of these guys, and that this is what happens. We get into this thing every year with free agency. Rarely do you get a quote unquote good deal. You don't get the 3-year, $15 million deal, and the guy turns out to be a superstar. That's generally not how it works. You have to overpay for these guys. That's why these guys love the free agency and being able to get to that point. So, but it is interesting some of the numbers again where you're just like, I really like that player, but I don't like the player for that price.
Yeah, and if you do find value, it's days like today, day 2 or day 3, when guys hang around, don't have the price that they want, and come back down to you, and you go, yeah, we're here with open arms. Yep. Come hang out. And that was last year, right? Tonga, who left, and we'll have Nuggets and all these different guys, as well as Chaisson and Hawkins and guys who powered the Super Bowl run, frankly, as much as Milton Williams, when you combine, say, Tonga and Chaisson. But setting that aside, we will have Nuggets, and why I think the Patriots actually might have themselves to blame for some of the edge prices and conversations when we kind of do some scuttlebutt around the league. But let's rank their signing so far. Best to worst, because I am a benevolent host. Who is the best signing for the Patriots so far of the 4 right now, Tuesday, 6:14 p.m.?
I like Romeo Doubs, the player, better than anyone else that they got. Well, I shouldn't say that. Alijah Vera-Tucker is the best player that they've signed.
Mm-hmm.
But Alijah Tucker doesn't play a lot of football. 43 games out of 85 of the available games that he's played. So that's a concern, which is why their contract is structured in a crazy way that I can't recall seeing it done before, where the roster bonuses, game bonuses are substantial. Where the guaranteed dollars are what, $16.5 million. But then if you add
Tucker,
the
guaranteed money is $21 million, which is half.
I thought it was 16.5, and then it's all the roster, it's all the game bonuses.
$12.75 million in per game roster bonuses. Okay. Today's
So
been a bad day for contracts on Twitter, by the way. How
oh
many
my
different
God.
variations did you see from Romeo Doubs? Which wasn't even like the agent spin of, oh, it's up to $100 million, if he makes all the money and incentives and then picks up a winning lottery ticket, like he could really make this money. This was just like flat out differences in terms of the terms. And
it
the
started
length
at
of the
3
contract.
and 60, right? And then it was 4 to 80, and there's all kinds of things in between. Yeah, I generally try to, when someone else reports the money thing, I generally like to let the dust clear. I'll retweet them, but I'm not going to. And I did that for Dobbs. I put the number on, and I was like, for you idiot, you've been doing this too long. Like the numbers change all the time. But so from the talent, AVT is the most talented player that they've signed. But I like the profile of Dobbs. I don't love him. I'm not saying he's this elite player, but like I think in talking to people in the last 2 hours, getting the sense that there's more there, and that if they were to not do anything else at the wide receiver position, AJ Brown, that it's not perfect, but I could live with the idea that I think one guy said to me basically, who scouted him, an assistant coach who, they get involved in the process later, scouted him, was like, I think it's closer to a 1-of-1 for Diggs than you think it is. And we didn't flush that out fully. Like this, I think he meant volume, but there's some stuff and some metrics that show he's pretty good underneath. And that's not necessarily how Green Bay used him a ton, right? He was their X. He played outside more. So that to me is intriguing. If that's the view for them and they say he can be more of a slot and he can eat some of those targets that Diggs did, then yeah, maybe this guy who's never caught more than 59 passes in a season, if he can stay healthy, maybe he catches 80.
So I have a bunch of numbers on Dobbs, but I want to give you the one person who got back to me today, which was somehow worse than yesterday, which was a good day for free agency wise. But it was a coach who is familiar with the Patriots and their wide receivers. And I asked, okay, what do you make of Dobbs basically being swapped in for Diggs? And the slot stuff I have to push back on because he only played 17% of his snaps in the slot last year. Diggs was much higher. He's a much bigger player, lives more in the intermediate areas. But in terms of what he does for Drake May, that Venn diagram is enough of an overlap where we're not calling it two separate circles. Here is the one thing I got from the people that I texted around the league about the Patriots today. After I texted you when you asked, hey, how many of you heard back from him? And I said, you remember that time Brett Boone swung and missed in the home run derby? This feels as embarrassing. Anyway, so here's what this coach had to say. And if I get that stuff later, which should happen because these people help me out all the time, you'll find it at the Herald or on a podcast later. Quote, upgrade, period. This is about Dobbs. Because you need to feature Diggs, you got to make sure he gets his touches. Otherwise, he is a pain in the ass. That, push back on a little bit this year, but next year, possibly. They got a good, selfless guy who will block, makes their offense more well-rounded, smart pickup by Elliott. Moral of the story, they got better with Dobbs and Gilliam, who he really liked. We haven't even brought up yet because he's a fullback. As I put yesterday in my column, yeah, like they fill the need in the way that you can have a rice cake for a snack. You still need more, but they need to do more while May's on the rookie deal, which everyone talks about, and we get that. So that's what I had on Dobbs. Here are the numbers.
Let me just give you one quick just a little ping pong back and forth.
Yeah.
This is one NFL assistant coach, and I quoted two of them in the story I wrote today for Boston Sports Journal. And it's similar to what you just said. He's gotten better every year, whether it's in the nuances of the game, release, route running, or just overall understanding of how defenses are playing. I wouldn't be surprised if they play him more in the slot. Tough kid.
Yeah, I mean, you're 6'2", and the league's gone bigger slots, right? For I don't know how many years now. It's long gone to the days of your, frankly, Pop Douglas's, Efton Chisholm's, Wes Welker's, Julian Edelman's. Okay, so the contract. If this is wrong, blame Burt Breer, our pal.
Yes,
4 years,
blame Burt.
$68 million, maximum value of $80 million. He is the 20th highest paid receiver by total value. It's a bit rich. That's free agency. He's tied for 27th by average annual value, interestingly enough, with Rashid Shaheed. Dobbs is less dynamic than Shaheed, who is the ultimate boomer bust proposition as we saw in Seattle, but I like the fit better. Last year, pretty much career highs across the board, 55 catches, 724 yards, 6 touchdowns, also had 124 receiving yards in their loss at Chicago in the wild card round, which was one of 2 100-yard games he's had in 4 years. The other one, also in the playoffs, big win at Dallas, and that's it. Now, he is what I would call a receiver 2B. And the ceiling is probably a strong number 2, and he'll turn 26 next month. He's got time in the physical prime. But last season was the first year of his career he topped 700 yards. And it's not like He is fighting through the jungle of great receivers in Green Bay to try to get out for some oxygen. Like, he had some room to grow, and this is where he ended up. The best parts about this on the field, and I'm really, I will tell you, restraining myself from getting into the A.J. Brown stuff because the negotiations and leverage fascinates me more than this. But here's the good on-field stuff. He is going to accentuate an existing strength, meaning their deep and intermediate passing. And he is going to mitigate a specific weakness, which is beating man-to-man coverage. He was the 20th best receiver against man coverage last year by PFF grades and average yards per route run. So whenever you're running, forget all the run plays, a route against man coverage, how productive are you? Which includes how many targets you get, what you do with those targets, etc. He's tall, 6'2", he's got 4.4 speed, and he's caught more than half of his contested catches over the 4 years he was in Green Bay, down to 43% last year, but we know that appeals to Mike Vrabel. And here's the last piece, because I had to bring up success rate.
There you go.
Success rate of 58% last year. That's really high. That is chain mover, consistent, reliable. That area of growth for him, where you're not seeing that, oh, we missed him on a deep post and then he's upset and he did skip a meeting last year or whatever. But that coinciding with Jordan Love having a passer rating of 112.7, one of the highest ratings for any receiver when targeted in the league, I like, because that kind of consistency is something that even with Diggs last year, you had some really high highs at Buffalo, at Baltimore, okay? But you also had some low lows. And Doubs is going to be a little steadier, and if not better than what you saw in Green Bay, just because of his age and what the development we've seen so far.
See, I would push back a little bit on the, not that he was having to fight through great receivers at Green Bay, but it felt like they have a bunch of solid B minus players, or, they invest a big pick in Matthew Golden this past year. And their offense is a little bit more vertical, a lot of shots, like Jordan Love not playing that game sometimes of just like, hey, take the open guy, take the 6-yard completion. No, we're going to throw it 35 yards down the field and see what happens, which can be fun and can also be, if you talk to some Green Bay people, maddening at times. So I just think there were a lot of guys there that need, again, not that he has a massive ego, like he hasn't really bitched and moaned about touches. That there was, as you mentioned, there was a meeting thing, and whether or not that he said it was more personal than it was football. I don't know.
He got suspended for a game, so it was enough to really bother him.
Exactly, it was a thing. But just sort of going out there, if you watch his effort, and I haven't watched every single game he's played in 4 years, but just going back from pre-free agency into now, seen a good chunk of football, and it's like there's effort there. He's not one of those guys that we pointed out a number of times, especially early in the year, Stefan's unwillingness to, I'm not the guy on this play. I'm not going to run this one out, or I'm the crosser and I'm supposed to be the pick guy, and I don't really feel like doing that. Or I'm the, I got to crack down on somebody. I don't feel like doing it. And I'm not saying that Doubs there won't be moments like that. I think all receivers have that, like, I don't feel like doing this, or I'm tired. But like, that's another thing that I think kind of gives them a little check mark.
So setting the Diggs stuff aside, because just look, he was released a week ago. We're all moving on. If I had to bet, I don't think Romeo Doubs will do what Stefon Diggs last season, which is have 1,000 yards and be as featured and consistent as he was on third down. I also think, and no, he had more yards in one playoff game than Steph Diggs had in 4 in the postseason. Again, setting all that aside, Dobbs' route tree really intrigues me, and this coincides with some of the numbers. This is from Matt Harmon, who does an outstanding job for Yahoo and his website, Reception Perception. Most of his routes are digs, comebacks, you got your hitches and some slants, and posts. And here are his success rates on those routes. Again, living a lot in the intermediate areas. Over 76% success rate, winning on the route, getting separation, being open on dig routes, 76% of the time. Post routes, close to 87% of the time. Slants, 80.6%. And comebacks, maybe Matt has to double check this, but this says 100, which is pretty damn good. And what that says is, obviously, the bigger frame here, just to wall off corners on a lot of these in-breaking routes. The speed to threaten downfield, where he had only 50% on the go routes, whatever. But to threaten on that and make on the comeback, that stuff intrigues me to open up the field a little bit, where it's like, okay, cool, you can throw jump balls to Kayshon Boutte and Matt Collins, and they did a lot of that. I don't know how much of that is sustainable going into 2026. This, to me, again, the reliability and consistency he showed in Green Bay makes me feel better. Can we finally talk about A.J. Brown, though?
We can.
Okay. So here's the most interesting part of this signing to me. Again, 2B gets number 2 money, good player, probably their best receiver, which maybe this took us way too long to finally get to in this podcast. Would you disagree?
No.
Okay, there it is. The Patriots have a new best receiver. Good signing, even though I gave it a B. Doubs' addition tilts some leverage back to the Patriots if, and when they go back to Philly to talk about A.J. Brown. And if I'm the Patriots, the negotiation piece is such a big deal here for a variety of reasons, mostly because they are so far apart. So what can you do to tilt leverage back in your favor?
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I would start this whole big campaign about how they are so committed to Concepcion or Denzel Boston or some receiver that they love at 31 to
or
make
even Kyle Williams now. Just pay.
Sure.
Like, we got Kyle Williams, so don't you worry about a thing.
Because they want A.J. Brown. Like, let's be clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
But what Doubs does is give them, again, a little bit leverage to say, when the Patriots go, we're fine, Howie, going into the season with this receiving core. Yesterday, he would have sneered and he would have been right. Like, even if you're high on Kyle Williams and Keishawn Boutte and Pop Douglas, like they're not in the top half of the league. Romeo Doubs is a little bit more believable to add him to this group because they've got depth. They've got young players with potential. You've got deep threats, guys who fit the quarterback. So this isn't going to make Howie Roseman come off of a first and whatever he wants. But it might close the gap a little bit enough that when they get after June 1st and all the financial pain, or most of it, goes away for Philly, that you can revisit this in the summer. And maybe it's not a first and a third or a fourth or whatever it might be, a pick swap. We'll do a second and Boutte because now we have the depth to give up a receiver. And if you really want a replacement here for AJ, there it is. So again, there's more that goes into it. But the fact that the Patriots now have a fallback option, not just hypothetically, like, oh, they might sign Alec Pierce, all the noise that we heard, right? Before A.J. Brown kind of came off the table, that they were hot after Alec Pierce and they had interest. This is real. He's in the building. This is their plan B for A.J. Brown. If you don't want to deal business, we're rolling with him, and we feel good enough, theoretically, to do that week 1.
I like that you brought up the Boutte as a flip potential. You're at a point where Keyshawn is in the last year of his contract. You start to see some of these numbers. 2 years ago, he had more volume in the offense than he did this past year. But this past year, obviously, the touchdowns, some of the big catches, big postseason performance against Houston. And I wonder, and I am fearful of this. Fearful is not the right word, but
shaking
I'm
your
not fear. It's not going to affect my life one way or the other. But I'm just saying, you see teams get in trouble when, and I bring up the Buffalo Bills as the example. They're paying a bunch of guys that are good players, but not great players, more money than they're worth, more money than they value than they bring to the field. Khalil Shakir is a terrific player. I love him. I really do. The Patriots should have drafted him. I told you that before the draft happened. He's really developed into a nice player. They're paying him a decent amount of money. They're paying him like a 2, and he's probably a 3. Like in a real good offense, he's probably a 3.
How about a 2B?
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, he's like the same Doubs tier, a very different player, but
that's fair. Yeah. Josh Palmer is making $12 million a year. He's terrible. He couldn't get on the field for them. But that was their answer this past offseason. And it's like, well, now you have Curtis Samuel a few years ago. They gave him 3 years and $24 million, which at the time was sort of like the 1 and $12 million, that sort of. And it's like, you don't have guys that make a difference. You have to scheme things up for them. And then all of a sudden you're like, do you know the Bills have the second highest number of invested dollars in a receiver position? And they still need a receiver. And they just traded for DJ Moore. Like, that's the situation you're in. So, like, I look at Boutte, and I've really come to appreciate Keyshawn. We've talked about him on the pod before, right? His maturity, how he's improved as a player. But is he a $15 million a year player? Because I think that's where he's headed. And so if you're paying Romeo Doubs 4 and 70 whatever, and you're paying then you're going to add Keyshawn onto that. You're going to draft a player. Kyle's going to be in his 3rd year, and you're hoping he's developing. Like, as you start to go look at it, long-term forecast, it makes me a little bit leery. So the idea of bringing AJ and a second and Boutte going away, then I'm not putting myself in that position where I'm going to overpay him to do that.
Yeah, and there was some spin is harsh because I got after someone for calling my feelings about Dre'Mont Jones spin about losing an Alec Pierce. Didn't know that you could have 2 separate thoughts at once, but we cleared that up with my friend on the internet. ESPN had these, well, they invested so many resources in, Romeo Doubs. I'm not sure they want to do that in AJ Brown. Okay. That price came down tomorrow. You don't think AJ Brown's a Patriot? Because I do. Anyway,
Yeah.
Vrabel mentioned this, by the way, as we were talking about AJ Brown at the draft, or no, excuse me, at the combine. And he brought up, well, trades happen all the time. Now, the draft, the summer. And that to me is said they've kind of had the long view in this. Again, it might not happen. I predict that it will because there's a long window here, really right up until kickoff of week 1, which I think is like September 13th this year. But this interests me. The talk will not go away, but for now they've got a little bit better, again, of a plan B, who they're excited enough about to give him 68 or 70 or $80 million. I don't know. Somebody else. We're going to get the contract tomorrow. I can tweet it myself. I don't really want to wait. Okay. We should go faster in these next 3 guys because we've got scuttlebutt and stuff to share. I keep saying scuttlebutt, rumblings, nuggets. What's your favorite, whispers, things we've heard? He's heard. It's not rumored.
2 of my things that I heard happened. So the AVT and the Kayshon Boutte were things that I was alerted to. If you look at my
or Doubs. What did Kayshon Boutte do?
No. I'm sorry. I got Kayshon Boutte in the brain.
Madden tournament.
Romeo Doubs. I haven't tweeted a ton during this free agency period. I backed off.
Thank God.
I tweeted a couple things about the interest in Doubs and the interest in AVT. And, so to me, those are things that I wasn't positive they were going to get done. There was competition. I mean, as of 10:30 last night, it looked like AVT was going to the Giants. And then something happened and they quickly pivot to the Patriots and that deal gets done. But that's sort of been where my head's been at with that.
Okay, let's do AVT. Even if he's not your second favorite, he's my favorite on this list.
I know and we talked about him pre free agency.
I know. And you and Doug guided me to chickening out on having him when I was potting with Aaron Schatz last week as who's my high priced item. I went with Jalen Phillips, who is look, the Benz, the Bentley of edge rushers now, apparently. Over AVT, who got much less money. Let's also call him Alijah Vera-Tucker before we get training camp. I think we can tell the people he's AVT. Once we meet him, we talk.
I just say it's a long name. That's all. And I once called him Aloe Vera-Tucker. So it happens. You talk.
Did you have a bulging disc by chance when you were doing that?
When I was talking for a living, it just this
doesn't go well always. Yeah. Okay, listen. I get the injury piece. You laid it out. They are what they are. 2 triceps injuries, including one right before the opener last year. A ruptured Achilles. Bad, not good. What I have to go off of, and what the Patriots did go off of, is his last full season, which was 2024. Again, you don't have to like PFF grades, but they tend to get things right at the top and at the bottom. It's in the middle where I have a lot of arguments. He was the 10th best guarded football that year. His pressure rate was under 3% allowed. So when I think about what I wanted the Patriots to do this offseason, protect Drake May and give him a better weapon or two, just kind of fortify things around your franchise quarterback, your MVP runner-up. You can't do much better than signing what I believe to be the second best offensive lineman available to fill a position where you don't have a starter right now. So I like that he's 26. I like that he's versatile. I like that he's super athletic. And what I love most of all is that you might, pending his health and Will Campbell's whatever, for the next 3 years, have the left side of your line with Campbell, him, and Jared Wilson now going back to center, because you've seen how good it is when he's there. And the only other lineman in this conversation for best in the whole class, again, you can't do better than best. That's how the word works, was Tyler Linderbaum, who I think got 3% of our GDP to go to Vegas.
Yeah.
So take him off the board. This was the best offensive lineman available and the one that they were interested in, and they got him. And I get the risks. I just don't see this as things, a bad hamstring or a knee where he's lost all of his cartilage due to ACL injuries. I think these are things that they can insulate him from, and it's more bad luck than it is a bad body.
Is it bad luck?
Well, do you want to say what you really want to say?
No, I'm just saying obviously when you blow out triceps on each arm, and I believe he injured his pec at one point too, that suggests to me that his muscles are extremely tight. Ted Johnson went through this with the Patriots. He blew out, I think he did it twice, blew out maybe biceps. I forget now. It's been so many years. But it's is that just how the player is built? And I know people look at the team last year and well, they didn't get hurt very much. You look at it, there was a little flurry at the end of the year after you jinxed them. Obviously, it was your fault.
It was.
But in general, didn't lose a ton of games to injury. I think they were fourth or fifth best in the league last year.
Yeah, second according to our guy Aaron Schatz.
Aaron Schatz, bingo. So they were up there, right? I got to tell you, generally, those are like turnovers to me. You have it one year, the next you don't. Like it just, there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Fair.
And so I don't know, but is this guy just more prone to these types of injuries? Also dealt with the toe at one point that cost him a game or two. So like, I don't know, like I'm not worried about the toe, but I am worried about the tightness of the muscles. And when you're blowing out muscles like that, it's a little scary.
So not a doctor, obviously. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing this rinky dink podcast on a Tuesday. Still in my in-laws basement. Love staying here though, as we house hunt, which by the way, was an analogy I aborted discussing about Alec Pierce. Glad that I did it. We should hit on him before we go. Put a pin in that. I just wonder if he could just lift a little less. You know what I mean? Like some of the training has to factor into this with all of the strain going onto those triceps. And just sometimes it's bad things happen when it comes to the Achilles, right? Like they'll be able to handle this. And I know that the process was sound, even if, let's say last year, because I totally agree. They had an unsustainable run of good health. Okay. Even after I jinxed them, right? Second best team in the league. And Vrabel's Titans teams at the end were some of the most injured teams in football in 2022 and in 2023. So like, look, this is going to change. I also just think it might regress to the mean for him, but in a positive way. So look, I just think what they couldn't afford to do is lose someone like him over a few $1 million. If we're compelling the Patriots to spend and go for guys at the top of the market, he's really at the top of the market. I don't want Zion Johnson, who struggles to pick up stunts. And the more I really watched this tape, was like, I can't believe I brought him up in a podcast with Phil Perry at the Combine. But I did say they'd invest in a left guard, and I'm glad it was Alijah Vera-Tucker. You can stomach a few games lost. You couldn't stomach losing this dude. Ben Brown, cool. You might get 4 starts. They'll be fine. You just need him to play more games than that.
Well, I mean, like I said, from a talent perspective, if he manages to stay relatively healthy and he is the player that he was before the injuries, then it's a home run. And to your point, if Jared Wilson settles in nicely at center, which we didn't see him play center last year other than for various points in the summertime, and Will Campbell is more of what he was early in the year than what he was in the postseason, then you do have this group that can grow together. We're talking about, having a target that grows with Drake May. Well, what about just an offensive line where he looks and goes, I got these 3 guys in front of me here on the left side, from center to left tackle that, we played together 16, 18 games a season for 3 straight, whatever it is, like that is beneficial.
Yeah. You want to do Reggie Gilliam or Dre'Mont Jones next?
I think we should just intersperse, as I was on a podcast yesterday with Taylor Kyles, when Taylor Kyles got the news that they got Reggie Gilliam, and it was almost equal to his Marte Mapu reaction from a few years ago that has been viral.
I missed that. That was like he got drafted. Is that what happened?
He was on the show. He listed as John Zanis was telling the story. He had his 5 best available guys in round 3. We're still all there, and they drafted Mapu, and he got so excited. You would have thought it was number 1 on his targets. But
okay, I need to find that. And also, I could have just told Taylor, Mapu was in the middle of my draft, because I may or may not have run into someone from the Patriots at the time of the Combine who had one too many. And I had a long list of guys that they were looking at in the draft, and Mapu, being a Bill guy, probably was going to get drafted. Anyway.
I mean, Daniel Jeremiah was tweeting out like he's the perfect Patriot. Like at the Combine, I was like, man, somebody had loose lips.
Yeah.
Good signing, right? Like they tried to do it with Jack Westover, and I'm not killing Jack Westover. He was a tight end who couldn't distinguish himself as the 3rd tight end and make that. He ends up being sort of this hybrid type player that got fullback reps, and there were some good games in there, and there were some games where you're like, you're getting absolutely nothing out of that player, and you signed a guy who paved the way for James Cook last year, and that's a really good offensive line, but he was part of the best running football team in the league last year, and got a ton of snaps in that regard. If you're into the PFF grades, he was 7th or 8th in terms of lead blockers last year, but he's just a good football player. He's also a special teamer, which, there's an added value there for the money that they put on the table for him. So that's a nice signing and gives them a chance to be a little bit more of a power football team that at times last year they wanted to be. Didn't always work.
So he got 3 years up to $12 million
Yes,
with
the
6
up to.
guaranteed. So this is really 2 for probably something in the range of 8 to 9. And he did not do a whole lot of receiving or rushing at Buffalo. 16 catches, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 rushes, 14 yards. He and Patrick Ricard, the 2 best fullbacks available, very different players because he's a normal sized human being at 6'2", 244. Yes. Patrick Ricard is like the slimmest 300-pounder I've ever seen in my life, but comes downhill, kick your ass, destroyer type, James Devlin, cousin. And Reggie Gilliam is really more of a move blocker here and kind of going in motion, and not where like you're trying to hide the tight end who's really not a tight end and he's going to have the sift block or kind of split zone stuff and he's going to block the backside or just get in the way of the backside edge. He'll be the lead blocker, pull around a counter, like all these different things. But you're right. They did need him. My only thing about this was, you signed Brock Lampy last year. I'm not banking on Brock Lampy to make the team, let alone be a starter. I just wonder, even if this is a team that had a 33% success rate when rushing with Jack Westover on the field last year, which is really, really bad when you have big personnel and you're trying to go downhill. If you guarantee $6 million to someone who at least might be at risk of losing to an undrafted rookie who was like a downhill fighter in Brock Lampy, it's not a great look. It's only $6 million. I don't count on that happening, but I just wonder, okay, Brock Lampy doesn't get the job. Could you just sign another fullback later? Though the one coach who does like me got back to me today, as was all these executives who must be busy dealing with free agency. I don't know. Did say Josh, meaning McDaniels, needs all caps a fullback in his system because Westover wasn't it. So like, look, they filled a need. I'm not upset about a fullback, but I just, given what they had, wonder if it'll be worth it in the end.
It was interesting though, because last year, remember, we were like, when the Westover thing started to happen, and we're like, oh, okay, like, all right, we'll see what this looks like, and then we're like, okay, it's not it. And then you're like, well, just go find a fullback, and they didn't find a fullback, and
true.
The thing is, there aren't that many of them out there anymore. It was a dying breed of maybe though we're starting to come back with everybody with the heavier sets of personnel this last year. Maybe it comes back in vogue a little bit, but so whatever. It's chump change in terms of cash spent, cash to cap, all that stuff. Like it's nothing. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. And you know what? If Brock Lampy sets the world on fire in the spring and summer and beats out Reggie Gilliam, you could probably flip Reggie Gilliam for a 7th round pick, and you take your $3 million kid or whatever it is, and you just, it just didn't work here.
Yeah, and look, I'm not losing a wink of sleep on this. I am not jumping down the Patriots route on this. I gave it a B-. I upgraded it to a B. The longer I stare at it, I'm glad he's in the building. Mm-hmm. It'll be cool to see a fullback in Foxborough again. Just we'll see how it goes. All right, Dre'Mont Jones. This got an A- for me. He was someone that the Patriots had interest in at the trade deadline. Shockingly, Amy Strunk Adams, owner of the Titans, did not want to do business with Mike Vrabel. So those talks, I can tell you, did not go very far for the Patriots asking for Dre'Mont Jones, who instead went from Tennessee at the trade deadline to Baltimore. And between his time with the Titans and Ravens, had 7 sacks, 24 quarterback hits, which is 11th most in the league last year, and including a couple hits on Drake May. He was one of these mid-level veterans, and the contract reflected that. 3 years, $39 million. Similar structure to Harold Landry, but short of the total numbers for Harold. I thought this was a nice piece of business. When you go by the total pressure numbers, again, courtesy of PFF, where I have my issues with them sometimes. 51, that's top 25 in the league. Pretty good. He's immediate insurance in case they did lose K'Lavon Chaisson, so that affects their negotiations. And he's played virtually every position across the defensive front as a guy who's listed at 281, but just like the Romeo Doubs contract, these numbers are all fake, and I need someone else to nail this down or just to see the man on a scale when we talk to him at a press conference, because he looked lighter than 281. But anyway, he just fits, high effort, physical, versatile, all these things. It was not a shock whatsoever that he signed within the first, I think it was 15 minutes of free agency.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the weight thing, because when I was doing my cursory work on the preview review for that position, I was like 281. I'm like, he didn't feel like he was 281 to me, but I'm like, that's his 281. And then, you start talking to people and they're like, he's pretty good rushing from the interior. And I'm like, well, then he can't be 260 rushing from the interior and have that sort of success on the inside. You're going against guys that are 40, 50, 60 pounds heavier than you. They're eventually going to get their hands on you, and you're going to have a hard time. And so but Harold Landry was the same way last year. Like, obviously not someone who rushes from the inside, but like, oh, he's 250. My ass, he's 250. He's like 230. Okay. And that's what he was playing at, somewhere in the 230s in Tennessee. So, like, I don't know. We'll see. I am curious, though, because of his ability at times to kick inside, if they do say, if that's something that they like and say, you know what, we would prefer you closer to 275 instead of, I think you and I both sort of view him as maybe he's actually, as you watch him, maybe he was 260.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am curious because that is, and then you look at that and say, oh, well, they have Milton in the interior. Christian Barmore's still on the football team. Like, Corey Durden ended up showing some things as a pass rusher last year in his work. It's like, well, would they kick him inside on obvious passing downs? And who comes off the field in that case if he does?
Yeah, I mean, they flex Milton Williams around to a 5 technique. I mean, he's not really going further than that. Sometimes like a 6. And that's to, tilt protection certain ways, even if he's not, going to beat you off the edge with speed if he's aligned that far out. But the point's well taken. I just think this is a great depth signing. I texted with a player on the team who had obviously faced him in Baltimore last year and prepared for him. And he said, look, he's good against the run, against the pass. I like it. So you know what? Whether it's the amateur scout in the locker room, amateur scout on this podcast, we agree. And I think we're ready to move on. We've talked a little about Alec Pierce, who is all anyone talked about in the lead up last weekend, Friday, Thursday. I don't know. He signs for 4 years, $116 million in Indianapolis, where I had, good agents telling me like, he's going to go back to Indy. Like the same stuff I had heard at the combine. And then all of a sudden they tagged Daniel Jones instead of him. And I go, I don't really know. Like, they're like, it's going to happen. So that's $29 million annually. I had also heard from those same agents and some other folks is like the Patriots are willing to go to 26, 27 annually. And naturally, then the question becomes, what's $2 or $3 million to them? Great question. To me, though, I didn't think he was worth that type of price tag. And this isn't about spending. This isn't about the crafts. It's just going, how much do you like a player? So if the evaluation piece says, I don't want to go pay him top 10 money, top 12, because I don't think he's even in the top 20 of receivers. And he's good. Don't get me wrong. Callahan, Colin, thinks Alec Pierce stinks. Cannot be a headline aggregated anywhere or clip from the show. Alec Pierce is good. I just didn't think he was worth that money. Clearly the Colts did. 31 teams didn't sign him. The Colts did at that number. I think if they hadn't gotten Doubs, obviously all we would talk about is Alec Pierce and them missing, and it would be a mistake. But was this a small mistake or a big one?
So I'll ask you this. A 25 going on 26-year-old receiver who, granted, 2 1,000-yard seasons in his 4 years. Not a heavy volume guy, at least, or last year. Okay. Or a 29-year-old receiver with a knee that's questionable at best. Well, I'm just making $29 million a year at the age of 29. Now, you have experience with the latter player and not the former. Yeah, not the latter player, not the former. I don't know. If you're telling me you can do A.J. Brown still financially and have to give up assets to do it, or I can just pay the cash for Pierce and still get Romeo Doubs, because that's what we're talking about here. You and I both are pretty confident that A.J. Brown's going to end up here at some point this summer.
Confident enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, to me, if he really was considering it, if he was really interested in leaving Indianapolis, which this is where we get, I'm not sure that he was, as you said as well. I don't know. I would go to 29.
It's look, I get it. And as someone who has railed on the Red Sox, being like, hey, you can just give up money and not money and assets in all these trades to get the guys that you want and just outbid other teams. Like Garrett Crochet has worked out.
Yes.
Super excited to root for him. Don't get me wrong. But like that happened because they got outbid for Max Fried and they had to give up Kyle Teal and all these different prospects and yada, yada. And a lot of other deals since from going like, just spend the money.
Yeah.
Keep your assets and use them elsewhere. The whole A.J. Brown push on my end of picking him over Alec Pierce is not that I think Pierce is bad. I think he's good. I know he's younger. I know he would only cost money and not money and assets. And those are the type of investments you want to make in. I just think A.J. Brown is that special, and I think his qualms about being misused in Philadelphia and working with a quarterback who only throws deep and only throws RPOs basically has held him back. And the next 2 years of paying him to be a legitimate number one, like a top 10 receiver by PFF grades with 1,000 yards, the open score by ESPN every single year of his career since his rookie season is really valuable to me. And Alec Pierce will stretch the defense vertically. And he's, again, really good. A.J. Brown is stretching it wherever you put him. Horizontally, vertically, diagonally, dimensionally. Like, whatever it is, he's just in such a rare company. Even if you only get 2 years of that, that's a guy that I want. So
has your love for A.J. Brown grown in the last week? I don't think I've heard you talk about him in such glowing terms.
Well, I just don't think I haven't laid it out like that. That's for sure. Like, specifically, to me, it was just obvious. Like, he's just appreciably better than Alec Pierce, and I think better than Alec Pierce will probably ever be. And you're
betting on, if you were investing that money in Pierce, you're betting on Pierce being the high volume target while maintaining this level of explosiveness on the outside. Yes. Which, as to your point, A.J. Brown has a resume that says, I can beat you on slants, I can beat you on goes, I can physically overwhelm you, I can do all these things. I already have that on my resume. Pierce has just a couple lines on his resume, and we don't know what fully that's going to look like.
Yeah, and it's, again, more, I haven't laid it out in those terms because I just thought it was obvious to me that A.J. Brown is that special and that well-rounded. And the other part that would give you hesitation is I understand the case against this, because this is the same case I often make in favor of the younger player who's got more potential, is I don't really want to be on the other end of a Howie Roseman trade. But there's the more noise to get back to the negotiations piece and this leverage and the dynamic between two good teams who are both win-now teams. Does A.J. Brown want to make a mess? I've said he needs to go to the James Harden school of forcing a trade, and we get that man a fat suit. We get him sitting in games, loafing, like, just, James got out of Philly even. BJ can do that. I think that helps the Patriots if they ever kind of want to make that happen. Anyway, that's one thing that people will say, okay, what should the Patriots have done differently in free agency? It's not a great class. They say, well, just sign Alec Pierce, give him a little bit more money. I don't have a great argument against it, except for I just didn't think he was worth it. What else, if anything, should the Patriots have done differently so far?
I would have been more interested in them being more involved in the tight end market. And I don't think, why am I drawing a blank on his name?
Kohler.
Yeah, but I wasn't a heavy price to pay, right? Like, I don't know.
$8 million. Yeah. Annually.
Yeah, annually. So we're probably talking 2 years and 14 million, 15 million, something like that, where that gives you, it's not Hunter insurance, but it allows you to say, Hunter, you don't have to be at the point of attack as a run blocker and wear down in the manner that you did over the course of the season, because we don't have anyone else, because Austin Hooper, not that guy either, right? And then again, sort of frees you up in the draft to be like, well, do we want the 265-pound tight end, or do we want more of a move tight end? Which there are, in both cases, there are guys in the second and third round that can be had.
Yeah, they'll draft a tight end. I'm with you, though. Like, you'd feel better about just having a number two, and it wasn't a great – I mean, it was a decent tight end class, and there's one guy left, too, from a production standpoint, like, is there, even though he's clearly slowed down. Dallas Goedert, as far as I know, still has not re-signed in Philadelphia or gone anywhere. Not advocating for him as kind of like the NFC Hunter Henry, probably. Yeah. But, you'd still like to be able to say, okay, we're going to play 12 personnel this week because this defense really sucks against 12. Right now, you can't really do that. Or if you do, you're hurting yourself because you're not good enough at it. But I'm with you. People have brought up the Michael Pittman trade. He goes to the Steelers in a 6th, 7th pick swap. Proven receiver. He has a couple 1,000-yard seasons, but his play fell off last year. And I dove a little deeper into some of his underlying stuff because, the box score stuff has gone down. Numbers against man were not great. Separation really isn't there. Like, the efficiency stuff goes down with the total numbers. I was out on that. And the Steelers, by the way, I'm also at a point where if they're making a decision, like a major roster decision, unlike the Eagles and Howie Roseman, you probably want to do the opposite, whatever is going on there. So, like, they're giving up a pick. I get it's not a whole lot, but it is an asset. And then paying Michael Pittman, who I just don't think it's worth it. So, like, look, I initially leaned that way and then leaned all the way out. I'd still like to see them sign Arlie Abakidi as an edge guy and then a safety. I mean, a lot of good guys who got signed. and Jalen Hawkins might be coming back, and I think that'd be fine. I wouldn't love it if their only remaining medium to large moves are Chason and Hawkins come back. I'd like another name in there at those positions. So that's it for me. But none of those are too big. Did you have leftover reaction from around the league to what they've done?
In general, it's sort of the vibe that we've given you on this podcast. B minus, like solid approach. Like I think people around the league didn't expect them to be, first day heavy throwing stupid money around. So yeah, I think in general, it's just like they've added to their team. They've made their football team better. And I think a lot of people around the league feel exactly like we do, that AJ Brown is going to end up in Foxborough, whether it's next week or, 3 months from now. That's sort of the expectation.
I just hope it's not a Tuesday in late June when I'm on a lake in Maine with a beer and a very different glass than you have right now. And I have to race to my computer because they just traded for AJ Brown. But honestly, if I was the Patriots, that's probably the exact window I would try to shoot for, because it's after June 1st.
Yeah.
He needs to calm down and get him fully in training camp, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll see. All right. Quick hit rumblings, nuggets, leftover stuff. I filed this at the end of my column yesterday. Things that didn't fit into why is this happening so far for the Patriots?
Mm-hmm.
And the top of the list is something that I've heard since, which kind of bums me out. But look, I wrote it. It's out there. I think people understand that when Carolina gave Jalen Phillips $30 million a year, which I bring up because it's a player the Patriots, had an eye on. Carolina probably did that because they lost a bidding war to the Patriots for Milton Williams last year. Then watch Milton Williams win a Super Bowl, be a culture driver for Mike Vrabel. Sorry, go to the Super Bowl.
Look at you.
Milton Williams is the only one who won the Super Bowl for the Patriots. Go to a Super Bowl, culture driver for Mike Vrabel, and be the second best, if not best, defender in that team. So they're like, F it. We are not losing another pass rusher in a bidding war. And the Eagles really, really wanted Jalen Phillips. The rumor was $25 million a year. It's about what his market was supposed to be. 30, though, is a little nuts. And that's where they went, which is to say that when Carolina does that in the first couple hours of free agency, Dafe Owe hadn't signed, Boye Mafe hadn't signed. Some of the edges still haven't been signed. That dragged the whole, as they push the market higher with Phillips, that drags everybody else with them. So if you're the Patriots going like, okay, we can get Boye Mafe, who I predicted they would sign, and I was wrong. He went to Cincinnati. He's gone. Would sign for like 16, 17. That Phillips deal might have been the reason he went for 20 instead. So there's nothing that they could do about Carolina learning a lesson that they taught them. It's just interesting to think 12 months later, why would Carolina lose their minds over Jalen Phillips? Because they failed to do it last year and it worked out for the Patriots.
Yeah, and they haven't been a massive spender, Carolina. So them dumping this money, it's sort of like a course correction a little bit. And I don't think that he's a $30 million a year player, but again, free agency, supply and demand, you get what you get. Boye Mafe is not to me that level of player that getting $20 million, but teams pay what they have to pay when they get guys that get in the open market and they want to make sure they land the player. Once again, by the way, proof that the owners make so much freaking money. It's ridiculous. You know what? That guy's not worth that, but give him the extra $15 million over 3 years. It's fine. I didn't pick up a ton. I mean, they definitely made from what I can understand, they made a lot of phone calls and expressed interest in a number of players, but most of those cases to me, Andrew, felt like it was, we know what we want to do. And if that goes sideways, we've already touched base with player X, player Y, player Z, that we can pivot back to them and be like, well, we called you on the first day. We called you in the first hour. We had, our assistant to the assistant to the assistant. He called you and let us know that, we wanted to be in this market. So you get a lot of that at this time of year. You're not doing your due diligence if you're not sort of stacking that up there. And I think they did that. And in many cases, I feel like they got what they wanted generally thus far.
Yeah. And that's the tough part on our end. I mean, it's not sitting at home and writing about football and making calls and not often hearing back because teams are busy and, don't want to tip their hand, et cetera, et cetera. But it's more that okay, a team called about, I don't know, pick a free agent, Charlie Kohler. And then you have, as a reporter, oh, they have interest in Charlie Kohler. And that's true. But it's this time of year in these 2 days where everyone's making calls. Just like at the trade deadline. F it. Let's see what Cleveland would take for Myles Garrett. Just in case we catch what's his face? Andrew Berry on his fourth martini, and he just has a first and a second.
Yeah.
We send the deal in. So like these calls happen all of the time, and maybe I should be doing more of the interest reporting. And people are spit of like, I'm just sick of hearing about the interest kings, which the Red Sox deserve fully, full stop. But then also knowing who they're in on. And so I try to go in firmly about like, they really like this guy. This is who they're looking at. So the stuff that Doug and I get at the combine, that's what you have. The opposite of that is to not have interest in them at all, which brings me to Mike Evans, who had this deal in San Francisco, which is a 3-year whatever. Turns out it's really a 1-year flyer for $16 million. And then you get this giant PR campaign. If it's not about the money, my heart wasn't in Tampa Bay anymore. Like, okay. Like we don't have to do this. You're gonna get the tribute video anyway. Like obviously it's about money. Like good for you. Go get another ring. Patriots did not have interest. It would have been fun. But that seemed like a situation that was just that I don't know. It didn't surprise me. He doesn't fit their timeline, but is a big enough player at a position of need that they just were like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, I when I did my review preview on receivers, I was like, I had him like 5th on the list. I'm like, you make the call because you don't know what's like, because again, I thought Pierce wasn't gonna leave Indy, and like, all right, fine. You start to move down the list, you're like, well, he's still someone who can attack 3 levels of the field. He's not going to play a full 17 for you, and I know last year was worse for him in terms of the injuries, but like he pulls a hamstring every year. It's a guarantee, missing at least a couple of weeks of the hamstring. What would it be like in the Northeast versus playing in Tampa? As you get older too, a little harder to get loose. It's like I can not that I'm an elite athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but like I figured like that'd just be one you're like, hey, what's he thinking? Would he want to think about playing with Drake May, and he likes to throw the ball down the field? But I'm not surprised. I know you actually were on it pretty early, and I was like, I'm not even going to push the thing. I know Andrew's talking to some people that know what's up.
Yeah. Last one for me, and this was news first reported by Mass Live at the Combine, and then Doug and I, confirmed it and advanced it a little bit. But like Khyiris Tonga, man, and I'll fully admit, like this dude is so friendly, and it's not just with reporters, because some guys will play that game and they're very nice, and I'm not dismissive of that, but things are a little bit different once the door is closed behind us and we leave the locker room about what's said. Khyiris Tonga is genuinely one of the nicest human beings I've ever met. Setting that aside, he was really close to being a Patriot, and I think there's some, if I had to guess, _guess, there's a little bit of regret about how those extension talks went in December, because this is the reporting part, that they got really close. And then talks broke down. His market went up because he learned how to pass rush, and the box score stats aren't there, but the pass rush win rate and some of the total pressure numbers are. So he gets $21 million, 14 of which are guaranteed, from Kansas City to go play with Patrick Mahomes and for Andy Reid on a defense that's going to need him at $7 million a year. I'd heard like he might have been happy or hoping for like 5 to 6. And so, okay, you're the Patriots and you botch that market. That's an area where, like, I know people are clamoring about $2 to $3 million is the difference between, Alec Pierce being here and not. I get it. Tonga, though, is just someone who is just a good force in the locker room, universally liked, respected. Again, forget the media stuff. Versatile, good human being, wants to set roots somewhere. You had him, you're not. It's a bummer. I'll miss it personally, even though I couldn't trick him into singing on this podcast, but we came close. There's a clip. Didn't go as viral as Taylor being excited about Marte Mapu, but it's there. And I don't know, because now you're a little bit shallow there, because it's Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Durden, Leonard Taylor, Joshua Farmer, and a guy doing a shrug emoji.
Yeah, that was a clear strength for you last year, and you were able to survive the Milton Williams injury, which we were at the time like, is that one of those guys that you just can't afford to lose? And he was part of that. Yeah, I think there's some regret there. I'm happy for him. Like the market went up for him, and he was able to take advantage of it. He gets to play next to Chris Jones, which, Chris Jones isn't the Chris Jones of 3 years ago, but that's still a pretty damn good player. But it also makes me wonder, I go back to Barmore one more time. Like, if Tonga's here, does that make Barmore more movable in your eyes? And I know that
a little bit.
Yeah, and they're not apples to apples players, right? I mean, clearly they're not, but like that's a good player, and we can cobble together with this player and Durden and this, that maybe we can get 85%, 80% of Barmore when he's at its best, and we can move off this contract. And also, as we've talked about and has been in the news, and I know the charges were dismissed, but like there's some stuff there that you have to be concerned about, and you just have to wonder, like, okay, you ducked it this time. What about next time?
Yeah, that's a whole separate conversation. I want to end on a high note. And by the way, $7 million for Khyiris Tonga is a lot. Don't get me wrong. If you're doing cold hard facts on this, like probably an overpay. Not lost to me. You were correct at the start of this podcast that we would not have a Patriot signing break as we recorded. And we're still technically recording. But do you have a prediction before we get out of here in a matter of seconds about what happens next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
I think we're going to go a few days without anything of any substance. Okay. I think you're going to see things. Oh, and by the way, something did just cross, though, about the Commanders have made, it doesn't say they've made an offer, but they are not done at edge. And one name that has come up is K'Lavon Chaisson.
I wonder if there's kind of a sense of like that's the team that's now being used. Is like because they have a lot of money, like that Josh Harris, that new ownership. I mean, all the owners have a lot of money, but don't get me wrong. They were the runners up for Romeo Doubs.
Yep.
So there was a legit receiver interest from them. But I just wonder if I'm an agent, what's the team that I throw out there? Because I know I had teams who weren't the Patriots coming to me being like, they really in on this guy? And one of them was a no. And that helped because teams thought the Patriots would be a good red herring, basically. Maybe Washington is that team. I don't know. I mean, look.
You could be right.
If you were still blowing in the wind at the end of day 2 of free agency and you had a client who's really counting on that next big contract, I would do whatever I could to make it happen because clearly the price tag, he's not getting what he wants. Hopefully Chaisson's back. We don't know. I think they re-signed Jalen Hawkins. I said that before free agency started. A lot of safeties are off the board. To me, the money you should have given Khyiris Tonga, I don't know. Give it to the dude who had 4 interceptions, a sack and a half, 71 tackles, and again, talk about flag bearer of the culture, scheme fit, all that stuff. Even if he doesn't get 4 picks next year, he's a good solid safety. We sign him.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of when you talk about the negotiating, it's come over to your side now. Like the idea that maybe he was going to be a $10 million a year player. Now some of these names have gone off the board. Teams have filled needs. Might be some good safeties in the draft. Would you take 6? I don't know what the number is. I'm just throwing it out there. But like, yeah, you might. You might just take the 6 and hope that next year you get yourself in a better place financially.
Yeah, there's always next year. Okay, this Mike Giardi Monday is brought to you by Prize Picks on the Pats Interference podcast. I appreciate you coming on a month after we did our last actual Mike Giardi Monday episode, and this was fun. I don't know. I mean, you don't think much is going to happen the next few days. I'll have another podcast either Thursday night or Friday morning, and this will be a bigger picture look. Some stuff around the league as well. You have more coming from the All 32?
I will have an All 32 tomorrow. TBD on time, guests, all those sorts of things. But we will, as things can be made official tomorrow. So we will jump on tomorrow and then probably again hit just later in the week. We keep the content flowing. We got this stuff to talk about, man. And Pat and Agawam, nothing beats Giardi saying Gonzalez.
Yes. Gonzalez, who we didn't even talk about today. So maybe there you go tomorrow.
Yeah, look at it. It could be a Friday topic. You don't know.
Yeah, cash flow, baby. All right, that's it. Thanks for everyone, the over 4,000 of you for hanging out. I'll be back late Thursday, early Friday, and be good. All right.
Yeah, you too.